Divine Cultivation System Chapter 1, Crossing. Chapter 001 Crossing. The night was as dark as ink, except for a few insects. At this moment, a mountain forest outside Lonjiang City was quiet. Suddenly, under a bush, two figures flashed past, and a few faint conversations appeared. Dead? Well, I'm out of breath, absolutely dead. Okay, just die, don't delay, let's go. The body is not buried. What to bury? There are so many beasts in the mountains. Within a moment, wolves and tigers will come over. By that time, there will be no dead bodies. Oh, in that case, let's go quickly, or it won't be good if the Qin family finds out. Go. With a few rustling sounds, two sneaky figures came out of a lush grass. After looking around for a while, the two sneaky figures, seeing that there was no one around, shuffled and disappeared into the vast night. In the place where the two people left, there was a person wearing a splendid cotton robe, lying quietly on the ground. The pale face and the lifeless complexion showed that this person had been dead for a long time. It's a pity, it's just a pity to look at the person's appearance, that is, about 14 or 15 years old, still a little boy, just died like this, what a pity. But at this moment, suddenly, a small spatial crack suddenly appeared above the young boy's corpse. Then, a gloomy light shot out from the crack, directly fell on the young boy's corpse, and finally merged into it. Then, the space rift disappeared, and a strange scene happened. The young boy who had already cut off his vitality suddenly shook, and his whole body shook unconsciously. Quick, Master is here. Suddenly there was an exclamation in the distance, and then several dark shadows flew quickly. Blue River City, Qin family. At this moment, in a luxurious room of the Qin family, a 14-5-year-old boy was lying on a big bed, and he seemed to have passed out completely. A few doctors in Lonjiang City, and an elderly man in 60s, were looking anxiously at the unconscious young man. How's it going? After several doctors had examined Qin Xiaofeng, the old man in 60s asked eagerly. But when he asked, the faces of the doctors hesitated. Seeing this, the 60th old man's face sank slightly, and he had some bad feelings in his heart. Say. This time, the doctors did not remain silent again, and one of the elderly doctors spoke up. Old Qin, young master's life is no longer a serious problem, but... After hesitating, the old doctor sighed softly, but young master's cultivation has been abolished, even his dantian all have been severely damaged, I am afraid that there is no possibility of recovery. Tsang Dang. Hearing what the old doctor said, the old man in 60th didn't stand firm and almost fell to the ground. His face became paler and his piercing eyes also dimmed in an instant, and became a little more muddy. Long time no words. After the doctor left, the old man looked at the young boy on the bed for a while, his face was full of sadness and heartache. But these sorrows and heartaches all disappeared soon. Is it clear? As soon as he walked out of the door, the 60th old man's face was cold, and his eyes flashed with killing intent with a cold light, and an indescribable majesty burst out of that old body. When the 60th old man spoke, there was no one else around him, he seemed to be speaking into the air. But as soon as he finished speaking, a dark place beside him swung lightly, and a strange figure appeared. Clear, it was the young master of the Zhang family who bought the two villains from the Wu brothers. A voice without human expression came from the dark shadow. This made the 60th elder's eyes narrowed slightly, and the chill radiating from his body was even more terrifying. Zhang family? What a Zhang family? The 60th old man said coldly, where is the one who does it? The two brothers of the Wu family were caught and locked up in a dungeon, but the Zhang family didn't have your instructions from the old man, we didn't do it. Very good. The killing intent flashed in his eyes, but finally the 60th old man remembered something, he paused, and then said, after the interrogation, I leave it to Fenger to deal with, as for the Zhang family, Although the 60th old man didn't say anything in the end, his killing intent was even more obvious. Divine Cultivation System Chapter 2, Rebirth. With a groan, Qin Xiaofeng finally woke up. But before he looked carefully at where he was, an exclamation suddenly sounded. Master, are you awake? The sound is crisp and childish, but it sounds soothing. This is Xiaoye. A name that was both unfamiliar and familiar suddenly appeared in Qin Xiaofeng's mind, and then, a little childish and delicate face appeared in front of Qin Xiaofeng's eyes. Yeah. Master, you really woke up. The little childish face was suddenly surprised, a naive smile appeared on his face for an instant, and the bright big eyes were slightly bent, like two small crescents. They were so beautiful. Although this was the first time Qin Xiaofeng saw Xiao Yue with his own eyes, in fact, he already knew the little girl in front of him very well. Because at this moment, Qin Xiaofeng is no longer the Qin Xiaofeng of the past, but the two worlds, after the two souls merged. One earth, one this world. Thinking of this, Qin Xiaofeng couldn't help but smiled bitterly, and he felt helpless to the extreme. Unexpectedly, after getting an electric shock, I actually crossed it. That's right, Qin Xiaofeng at this moment was born again after being accidentally electrocuted on the earth. After the earth was electrocuted, Qin Xiaofeng's soul traveled into this world. Coincidentally, there was also Qin Xiaofeng in this world and Qin Xiaofeng who had just died. In the end, the soul of Qin Xiaofeng from the earth entered the world of Qin Xiaofeng's body and merged with the other's soul. This is an alternative past and present. Because Qin Xiaofeng in this world has already died and his soul has almost completely dispersed, after this fusion, the Earth's Qin Xiaofeng soul is the main one. The reason why Qin Xiaofeng was in a coma before was precisely because the two souls were merging. Now that the fusion is over, a new Qin Xiaofeng has appeared. Although it passed, it survived anyway. This made Qin Xiaofeng feel a little bit emotional, but looking back on his life, Qin Xiaofeng felt a little bitter. Qin Xiaofeng, the only heir of the Qin family in Lanjiang City, is also a genius. He began to practice at the age of 7, and at the age of 12 he practiced to the ninefold peak of body tempering, and then entered the martial arts and became an acquired martial artist. Now he is 1 month away from turning 15 years old, but he has already cultivated to the acquired 5 levels. In this Blue River City where the inborn martial master is king, the young Qin Xiaofeng is already a very good master. But that was before, now Qin Xiaofeng has become a useless person. For this, Qin Xiaofeng also knew very well, because in his memory, he clearly remembered who had broken his dantian. I didn't expect Qin Xiaofeng to live so hard, and finally survived, and also passed through, but now I am a useless person. For a while, Qin Xiaofeng's mood was a little depressed. It seems that Qin Xiaofeng is in a bad mood, and the little girl Yue understands the reason for this, and she can't help but calmly said, "Master, don't be sad, the old lady is so powerful, he will definitely restore you." In the heart of the little girl, Qin Xiaofeng was already the grandfather of the innate martial artist, but he was omnipotent and could definitely restore his young master. But Qin Xiaofeng, who had a preliminary understanding of the world, was not so optimistic. The broken pubic area, how can it be so easy to recover? But seeing the firmness of the little girl's face, Qin Xiaofeng didn't say much in the end, but just smiled softly, "Girl, I'm a little tired, go down and rest." Xiao Yue hesitated, but finally saw Qin Xiaofeng, she went down. As soon as the little girl left, Qin Xiaofeng let out a heavy sigh, but then thought of his current situation, his heart felt heavy. As he understood, the death of his other soul, Qin Xiaofeng, was premeditated. This matter has to start from this Blue River City. Although this Blue River City is not a big city in Lianyang country, it has a population of millions. This is fine. Although Lanjiang City has a large population, under the management of Lian Yanghua, there have been no major problems. But just a month ago, this Blue River City had a problem. Divine Cultivation System Chapter 3, System appears. The reason is that the city lord guarding this Blue River City is about to leave. But after his departure, the new Lanjiang City lord will be selected from the 3 major families of Blue River City. The 3 major families in Lanjiang City are the Qin family, the Zhang family and the Wang family. The method of selection is also very simple, that is, competition, and the winning family gets the seat of the city lord of Blue River City and enjoys the city lord official position of Lianyang Kingdom. There is another special point, that is, this competition is not based on the strongest in Blue River City, but the strongest from the juniors. This is different, because the entire Lanjiang city understands that Qin Xiaofeng is the best junior among the three families. The city lord was determined by a junior match. The city lord of Lanjiang city basically belongs to the Qin family. But the other two big families, the Wang family and the Zhang family, would watch that the position of the city lord of Lanjiang city fell into the hands of the Qin family. Therefore, Qin Xiaofeng was assassinated by the Zhang family and eventually died in the Heijiao mountain forest outside Lanjiang city. However, what Zhang family never expected was that Qin Xiaofeng was finally resurrected in a unique way. But what if it is resurrected? As soon as he thought that he was already a useless person at this moment, Qin Xiaofeng sighed heavily. But at this moment, a weird voice with a trace of machinery suddenly echoed in his mind. Ding dong! The system is loaded successfully. Welcome players to enter the Infinite Journey world system, start a journey against the sky, and embark on an infinite journey. System loaded successfully. Could it be? The mechanical voice in his mind caused Qin Xiaofeng's heart to jump fiercely, and he couldn't help but think of some possibility. And this possibility was quickly confirmed. With a scream, Qin Xiaofeng suddenly popped up a virtual interface. Player, Qin Xiaofeng. Level, none. Internal gas value, 0. Skills, none. Battle beast, none. Equipment, none. Task, none. Points, none. It was not an auditory hallucination. The somewhat familiar interface in front of him made Qin Xiaofeng completely affirm that as he came from the earth, not only his soul, but also the game of infinite journey to the world came. In fact, it was this game that caused Qin Xiaofeng to pass through. Because Qin Xiaofeng was in a bad mood, he found an invincible version of a mini-game to relieve his boredom. But who knew that he was enjoying the game, and he was prompted to charge. Qin Xiaofeng was even more excited for a while, and the cup was overturned. And then he is here. There is a game system, doesn't it mean that you can fight monsters and upgrade? In this case, even if you don't have a Dantian, there shouldn't be any problems, right? Looking at the attribute interface in front of him, Qin Xiaofeng couldn't help but jumped wildly. At this moment, some mechanical system prompts rang again. System reminder, congratulations to player Qin Xiaofeng for obtaining the qualification for the game, a special reward package for the system, please collect it by yourself. Spree. Upon hearing such a prompt, Qin Xiaofeng's eyes flashed sharply, and then he hurriedly started to check it out on his attribute interface. Sure enough, in the system message bar, there was a reminder that he was getting a big gift package. System gift package, special rewards given to players by the system. After opening, special rewards will be obtained depending on the player's luck. Special reminder, this big gift package is a special gift package. After opening it, there is a chance to get any level item, even if it is a god-level technique or equipment. God-level exercises. God-level equipment. Qin Xiaofeng's eyes went straight in an instant, without any hesitation, Qin Xiaofeng couldn't wait to open the special gift package. Congratulations to player Qin Xiaofeng for obtaining a holy level exercise, the Book of Changes. Congratulations to player Qin Xiaofeng for obtaining a god-level skill and glaring eyes. Congratulations to player Qin Xiaofeng for getting 100 system points. 3 successive mechanical system prompts echoed in Qin Xiaofeng's mind, and Qin Xiaofeng was suddenly excited. The Yi Jin Jing. Isn't this the technique created by the ancestor of Bodhidharma? It's actually a holy level technique. This. Although I don't know how powerful this so-called holy level technique is, Qin Xiaofeng understands that it must not be easy just by hearing the terms of this level. This is not to mention the golden eyes behind. What is the existence of golden eye? Even if the system does not prompt, Qin Xiaofeng knows what level of skill it is. That is the unique skill of Monkey King Monkey King. Can the skills possessed by the great sage not be good? Divine Cultivation System Chapter 4, the Yi Jin Jing and the Golden Eyes. System prompt, does the player Qin Xiaofeng learn the holy level, Yi Jin Jing, and have a dazzling eye with god-level skills? Just as Qin Xiaofeng was extremely excited, the mechanical sound of the system sounded again. Study. Definitely learn. Definitely learn. Do you still need to ask about this? Qin Xiaofeng shouted excitedly. As soon as Qin Xiaofeng's words were spoken, he felt a slight jitter in his attribute interface in front of him. Then, there were 2 more skills in his skill column. Then, Qin Xiaofeng felt a certain change in his body. At first, it was his own eyes. Although there were a few bright headlights in his room, it was a dark night outside after all. In addition, he was seriously injured, his body was still in pain, and his mind was a little confused. This also made him feel a little gloomy when he looked at the room. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a coolness in his mind and suddenly became energetic. What is even more incredible is that his vision also brightens up. As far as his eyes came, what Qin Xiaofeng saw was no longer a dark scene, but bright and bright, no different from the daytime. Moreover, Qin Xiaofeng quickly discovered that everything was so clear under his sight at this moment, even the little bug could be seen clearly on the door of the room several meters away from him. Not only the appearance, but even the tiny thin legs were clearly seen by him. Needless to say, Qin Xiaofeng also knew that this was the result of his own gaze that became so clear after he had the golden eyes. It deserves to be a god-level skill, the abilities brought by this fiery eye is also amazing. Qin Xiaofeng was startled, his face was full of joy, and then his heart moved again. These glaring eyes have brought such benefits to me, what about the Yi Jin Jing? As soon as he said this, Qin Xiaofeng immediately felt that his body had also changed. A burst of heat suddenly rose from his belly, and Qin Xiaofeng was shocked. Is this internal energy? Qin Xiaofeng was dumbfounded. His dantian has obviously been abolished, and it is absolutely impossible to show internal qi, but now the feeling in his belly. Can't go wrong. This is the feeling of inner energy. Recalling the feeling in his memory, Qin Xiaofeng was sure that the hot air in his belly was the internal energy that could only be stimulated by the triple strengthening body. It is one thing to have memories. After realizing the existence of inner qi at this moment, Qin Xiaofeng was a little excited. Sister, now I am back on Earth, I am afraid he is also a master of martial arts, can I walk the wall? Xiao got up and got out of bed, Qin Xiaofeng waved his fists indiscriminately and got up. Call. 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 According to the feeling in his memory, Qin Xiaofeng's heat of luck was transported to his hands, and this dance moved, bringing a trace of fist wind. It's so exciting. After waving for a while, Qin Xiaofeng looked at his fist and laughed. Only then did he feel that the pain in his whole body and the injuries that had not been healed before had been completely healed. This punch can produce dozens of kilograms of strength, but Qin Xiaofeng is very excited. This is cultivation. Qin Xiaofeng sighed now, his eyes flashed with determination. Since God let me come into this world, then I, Qin Xiaofeng, will have a wonderful time. I will look at the end of this world's cultivation, where is it? Although Dantian still did not fully recover as he remembered. But Qin Xiaofeng can be sure that after he owns the Yi Jin Jing, his Dantian will recover here, and that will happen sooner or later. Skills, Eyes, Jin Jing, Yi Jin Jing. Fiery Eyes, Level 10/100, God-level active skill. It is a well-known skill of Monkey King Monkey. The current level is level 1, so you can see through the same realm, so there is a certain chance of getting the opponent's weakness. In addition, it can also detect any other things, and detect the level of things, depending on the player's level. Each time it is cast, it consumes 10 internal energy points. Yi Jin Jing, first level 0 out of 100, holy level passive skill. Although it is not a god-level exercise method, this exercise method is quite special. It contains another exercise method created by Bodhidharma ancestors, the Marrow Sutra, so it has the powerful ability of washing the marrow. The current level is 1, which can increase the player's internal energy to 3 times the original. Level 1 Yi Jin Jing can restore 1 point of internal energy per minute. As soon as Qin Xiaofeng learned this glaring eye in Yi Jin Jing, Qin Xiaofeng's other attributes have also changed, the most important thing is that he has upgraded. Player, Qin Xiaofeng. Level, first quenched body, 0/100, 100 points of experience short of the next level of quenched body double. Internal energy value, 30/30ths, the body-quenching weight has 10 internal energy value, and the Yi Jin Jing is tripled. Skills, Golden Eyes, Yi Jin Jing. Battle Beast, none. Equipment, none. Task, none. Points, 100 points. Divine Cultivation System Chapter 5, Kill Monster Upgrade, on. Actually, it is only the first level of body tempering realm, and only the third level of body tempering can have inner energy. Knowing this, Qin Xiaofeng paid more attention to the Yi Jin Jing. Soon, the whole night passed like this. But Qin Xiaofeng hadn't slept all night. He was excited, but he checked all the systems he had. This is no different from the game he played before crossing. If there is anything to be said, it is that the level of exercise skills and all items seems to be synchronized with this world. This is not the point is the mall of the system. Although the mall has not officially opened yet, after Qin Xiaofeng's research, Qin Xiaofeng can be sure that there are endless items in the system mall. As long as the points are enough, everything is possible. After understanding this, Qin Xiaofeng felt extremely regretful. If he had known long ago that he would have encountered such a situation, then he would directly recharge 80 million renminbi. In that case, he will have a lot of points. What if he wants to buy? Just as Qin Xiaofeng felt a pity, there was a knock on the door suddenly, and then the familiar, crisp sound rang. "Master, are you awake?" Only then did Qin Xiaofeng realize that the whole night had passed like this. In some uncomfortable situations, Qin Xiaofeng enjoyed the little girl's service, and then under the little girl's somewhat strange eyes, Qin Xiaofeng casually swallowed a few cakes and ran away. Although the memories of this life have been integrated, Qin Xiaofeng, who is based on the soul of the earth, is still not suitable for the treatment of getting up and having someone to serve. Even if it was the little girl's soft hands that made him extremely comfortable, Qin Xiaofeng was still a little embarrassed. After soul fusion, Qin Xiaofeng now also knows that in Qin's family he is his grandfather, a relative. As for his father, Qin Xiaofeng left Blue River City as early as 6 years old. Since then, there has been no news from the bird and never returned. As for Qin Xiaofeng's mother, there was nothing else in Qin Xiaofeng's memory except for a loving, beautiful and fuzzy face. Because Qin Xiaofeng didn't have much memory about his mother, he just remembered that when he last saw his mother, when he just turned 3 years old, then his mother disappeared. It is disappearing, not passing away. And Qin Xiaofeng's father's departure seemed to be because of his mother. But Qin Xiaofeng didn't know what the situation was. He had asked his grandfather many times, but the old man Qin said that he would tell Qin Xiaofeng's parents only when his cultivation level surpassed his elders. Qin Xiaofeng's previous practice was one of the main reasons. It seems that there is something about his being abolished, and the people in the Qin mansion are mostly sorry and sympathetic when they look at Qin Xiaofeng. Although it is the youngest of the Qin family, Qin Xiaofeng did not rely on his own status before, and did not act excessively towards the people of the Qin family. Those of the Qin family also respected Qin Xiaofeng extremely. Facing people's gaze, Qin Xiaofeng felt helpless, but he didn't care too much. He only cared about one thing now. One thing related to his future survival in this world. In order to verify those speculations in his heart, Qin Xiaofeng arrived early in the morning, the backyard of the kitchen of Qin's mansion, where the animals were fed. Looking at the livestock in the kitchen backyard, Qin Xiaofeng was surprised. Because just now, he consumed 10 points of vigor and used his fiery eyes once, and then the news from the system made Qin Xiaofeng more sure of his guess. Domestic porcupine, level 2, a domestic porcupine domesticated from a low-level monster porcupine in the wild. The meat is tender and delicious, which can be regarded as a rare delicacy. Giant turkey, level 1, a large chicken breed, the least threatening low-level monster. The maximum length can reach 20 kilograms. The meat is tender and delicious. It is one of the rare and precious poultry. Black goose. This dazzling golden eye is worthy of a god-level skill. Only once it was used, Qin Xiaofeng was able to detect all the livestock and poultry in the backyard. Since the data can be recognized by the system, can you gain experience after killing it? Kill monsters to upgrade. That's right, this is what Qin Xiaofeng needs to prove. Divine Cultivation System Chapter 6, Kill Monster Upgrade, Part 2. Although because of the system, Qin Xiaofeng could practice the exercises. But even with the Di Jin Jing, this is still not enough for Qin Xiaofeng, who has broken his dantian. There was less than a month left in the Blue River City Lord competition. Qin Xiaofeng didn't naively think that in this less than a month, he had cultivated the Di Jin Jing to several levels. So he thought of this killing monster upgrade. Yo, young master, why come to the backyard any time? A simple and honest middle-aged fat man trot over with a big smile on his face. This fat man is the chief chef of the Qin family, whose real name is Qin Debao, is considered to be a member of the Qin family. Uncle Debao, I'm here to kill a chicken. Qin Xiaofeng replied without looking back. But his answer made Qin Debao dumbfounded. Kill the chicken. This. Qin Xiaofeng's answer made Qin Debao confused. Could it be the young master, because his dantian was abolished and stimulated, is something abnormal now? After a while, Qin Debao couldn't help but think of this possibility, and couldn't help but feel more sympathetic to Qin Xiaofeng. Then, Qin Debao did not hesitate, and immediately nodded and said, well, since the young master has this kind of yaxing, my Debao must cooperate with the young master. With that said, Qin Debao led Qin Xiaofeng into the backyard. After a while, seeing the giant turkey weighing 20 kilograms in front of him, Qin Xiaofeng's eyes were bright. But Qin Debao, who was on the side, saw this scene, and there was a wailing in his heart. It's over, the young master is really irritated, and he is already a little confused. But Qin Xiaofeng didn't care about this. Grabbing the sharp knife Qin Debao handed him hesitantly, and approached the turkey. Cock! Cock! Seeing the shimmering sharp knife rushing towards his neck, the giant turkey was struggling for a while, but it was a pity that Qin Debao had already wrapped it into a zongzi so that Qin Xiaofeng would not suffer any harm. How can this be struggling? With a snort, a burst of hot blood spurted from the neck of the giant turkey, and it splashed all over the place, and Qin Xiaofeng also splashed a lot on his body. Ding dong! A mechanical system prompt sounded, and Qin Xiaofeng then smiled, laughing so happy. System tip: congratulations to the player for killing a giant turkey at level 1 and gaining 1 point of experience. Hahaha, really, I can kill monsters and upgrade. Qin Xiaofeng laughed wildly in his heart. Had it not been for the wrong situation around him, he might have laughed out loud. But even so, this made Qin Debao on the side look frightened, especially seeing the smile on Qin Xiaofeng's mouth. Qin Debao felt extremely anxious. Unbelievable, unbelievable. The little young master was so irritated, killing a turkey, and laughing so strangely. But at this moment, Qin Xiaofeng said in a loud voice with some pride, next. Next. Is this still coming? Qin Debao's face changed slightly, and he hesitated, but then he suddenly thought that people who are said to be severely stimulated must follow him first, otherwise they will go crazy. This young master's spirit is pitiful enough. If he is going crazy, then. Qin Debao didn't dare to think about it anymore, and could only do as Qin Xiaofeng wanted. In this way, Qin Debao, in order to prevent his young master's spirit from deteriorating again, could only follow Qin Xiaofeng's will, bundle the turkeys, and send them to him. And after the turkey was killed, it was the turn of the black goose and duck, and then. System tip: congratulations to the player for killing a giant turkey at level 1 and gaining 1 point of experience. System prompt: congratulations to the player for killing a black goose and duck at level 1 and gain 1 point of experience. System prompt: congratulations to the player for killing a level 2 domestic porcupine and gaining 5 experience points. Looking at the more and more blood on the ground, even if it is a chef like Qin Debao who slaughters cattle, sheep, chickens and ducks, his face is getting paler and paler, and he can't help but look forward to saying, "Old lady. Your old man come here now." The little one can't stand it anymore. Unlike Qin Debao, Qin Xiaofeng was more slayed and excited. Although each of the level 1 chickens and ducks only brings him 1 point of experience, even the level 2 domesticated porcupine only has 5 points of experience, but this can't bear the large number. Divine Cultivation System Chapter 7, Kill Monster Upgrade, Part 2. After a while, a system prompt sounded, and Qin Xiaofeng smiled slightly on his face with a little blood stains. Can match the appearance of a blood code at this moment, it is slightly gloomy. System reminder, congratulations to the player for meeting the upgrade requirements, player Qin Xiaofeng has been upgraded to level 2. Player, Qin Xiaofeng. Level, double body quenching, 0/200, 200 points of experience short of the next level of triple body quenching. Internal energy value, 60/60ths, double body quenching has 20 internal energy value, and Yi Jin Jing is tripled. Skills, Golden Eyes, Yi Jin Jing. Battle Beast, none. Equipment, none. Task, none. Points, 100 points. Upgraded. Qin Xiaofeng has now returned to the body tempering double layer, but this speed is too amazing. Although Qin Xiaofeng had the name of the first genius in Blue River City, it took a full month from the first level of body tempering to the second level of body tempering. This was still supported by a large number of medicinal materials. But now? Is it a quarter of an hour or two? Thinking of this, Qin Xiaofeng felt excited, and the sharp knife in his hand was swung even more quickly. But soon, Qin Xiaofeng's brows wrinkled slightly. Although the experience gained from killing chickens and ducks has not changed, it is still 1 point, but when Qin Xiaofeng kills the level 2 domestic porcupine, the experience gained is no longer 5 points, but 1 point like chickens and ducks. Experience. It seems that as one's level increases, and the same monsters are killed, the experience that one gets will also decrease. An hour later, Qin Xiaofeng, who was covered in blood, left the kitchen backyard. Body tempered triple. This is a good harvest. At this time, Qin Xiaofeng was extremely proud of him. But after this time, the 300 to 400 giant turkeys, black geese and ducks in the backyard of Qin Mansion that were enough to eat for 2 to 3 months, and the hundreds of domestic porcupines were all killed by Qin Xiaofeng. Faced with this unprecedented situation, Qin Debao was stunned for a long time. Qin Mansion, the residence of Father Qin. Hearing the news from the servants in the mansion, old man Qin frowned slightly involuntarily. Kill the chicken. Is this kid really stimulated? It shouldn't be. That girl Yuer told me in the morning that nothing happened to this kid. Father Qin was confused by Qin Xiaofeng's behavior. Although he didn't think that his grandson would be irritated, he finally thought about it. He still gave an order to the empty place. Go down, watch that kid for me, and arrange for 2 people to follow him by the way. If there is any abnormality, report it quickly. Yes. The place that was originally empty suddenly swung lightly, and a figure left in a flash. To be able to hide his own breath and traces so subtly, the master of the figure is probably a not easy character. This old man Qin took great pains to protect his grandson. The weather today is so sunny, so sunny. Good scenery everywhere, good scenery. Under the frightened face of the little girl, Qin Xiaofeng, who had changed into a blood coat, was walking on the street of Blue River City at the moment, humming untuned songs, looking leisurely all the way. When he knew that he could really kill monsters and upgrade, Qin Xiaofeng had an idea. That is the upgrade. This reminded him of the Colosseum in Lanjiang City. The beasts in this world are much more powerful than the beasts on Earth. Just like the chickens and ducks that Qin Xiaofeng killed before, in fact, according to the world's terms, those chickens and ducks are already monsters. However, it was also the lowest level monster, and it was still a beast. The division of monsters in this world is extremely detailed. Low-level monsters are usually equal to the body-tempering realm of humans, and are divided into 10 levels. Correspondingly, the intermediate monster beasts are equivalent to the human beings in the acquired realm, and the senior monster beasts are like innate martial arts. As for what kind of monster beast is innate, Qin Xiaofeng doesn't know. However, it didn't matter, Qin Xiaofeng only wanted to find some low-level monsters to raise his level. Because the Colosseum often handles some low-level monsters that are too badly injured and have no combat power, all Qin Xiaofeng thought of this. After those hundreds of chickens, ducks and ducks, Qin Xiaofeng also understood that just relying on some low-level monsters to upgrade, the number needed is certainly a lot, although as a Qin family, he has a lot of pocket money every month, and these many years have also been saved. But I'm afraid it's not enough for him to upgrade, and the monsters that the Colosseum needs to deal with are generally the cheapest. Divine Cultivation System Chapter 8, Zhang Lingyun. The Colosseum in Blue River City is not a power of any one family, but a powerful mysterious power, so even the previous city lord of Blue River City did not dare to offend this Colosseum. Arrived. Seeing a huge circular building from a distance, Qin Xiaofeng's eyes lit up slightly, but at this moment, a voice with a strange tone of yin and yang suddenly came. "Oh, isn't this our first genius in Blue River City, Master Qin?" The voice came so suddenly and so familiar. Zhang Lingyun. His brother? Without looking back, Qin Xiaofeng had already heard who the voice was. There was a slight cold in his heart, and a cold light flashed in his eyes, but in the end Qin Xiaofeng still didn't stop and entered the Colosseum directly. "Actually ignore me? This bastard." Qin Xiaofeng's attitude obviously angered that Zhang Lingyun completely, but when he saw the two guards next to Qin Xiaofeng at the moment, he couldn't help but stop his figure and did not dare to step forward. He naturally recognized that the two guards around Qin Xiaofeng were the people around Qin family's old man. Although they were not innate martial artists, they were also 10-peak martial artists in the acquired realm. It seems that after that time, the old Qin family began to be careful. The two brothers of the Wu family, Big and Two, are really unfavorable. They didn't actually kill this kid. After muttering a few words softly, Zhang Lingyun smiled coldly on his face, a little disdain in his heart. "Huh, what if you haven't died? This Qin Xiaofeng is already a now, and my Zhang family doesn't need to pay attention to a rubbish. What else did my father say?" The two brothers of the Wu family have disappeared. Some of the properties in my Zhang family have also suffered some unexplainable blows. The losses are not small. It seems that the plot to murder that waste has been exposed. Let me not provoke that Qin Xiaofeng recently. Something, I didn't even let Big Brother go out. It's ridiculous for me to say it. As long as the eldest brother wins the battle, then this Blue River City belongs to my Zhang family. What is a small Qin family? I still need to be afraid of him, Qin Xiaofeng, as a waste. Although Zhang Lingyun had such a thought at this moment, it was his father's order that he could not violate, and in the end he could only endure it. However, when he thought of Qin Xiaofeng's attitude towards him just now, there was still a knot in his heart. Finally, after thinking about it, Zhang Lingyun's eyes lit up slightly, with a cold smile on his face, and followed Qin Xiaofeng into the Colosseum. "Oh, it's a really good day today, rare guests like Qin Daxiao have also come to my Colosseum." As soon as Qin Xiaofeng walked into the gate of the Colosseum, a middle-aged man in his 30s greeted him. This middle-aged man is the steward of this Colosseum. Although the look of this side in charge seemed ordinary and nothing special, Qin Xiaofeng knew that this side in charge was a master at the pinnacle of the day after tomorrow. For such a person, Qin Xiaofeng would naturally not be rash. With a faint smile, Qin Xiaofeng said, "It's a bit boring these days, so I just come to take care of you for a stroll. Walk around." Ben Xiaocan is because Qin Daxiao has suddenly added a hobby recently. This is how he came to the Colosseum, right? A slightly ironic voice came, and that Zhang Lingyun also walked into the Colosseum. "Feng Guan, don't you know that, recently our little Qin has a hobby of killing low-level monsters?" Faced with those low-level first- and second-tier domestic animals, the scene where Qin Daxiao shows off his power, it's wonderful. Up. Without waiting for Qin Xiaofeng's response, Zhang Lingyun, who came over, satirized Qin Xiaofeng triumphantly. Zhang Lingyun's words made Qin Xiaofeng frown. Killing those low-level domestic animal monsters, that is, this morning, at most an hour has passed since now, and besides Qin Dabao, few people should know about it. But at this moment, Zhang Lingyun's remarks had already shown that he knew. It seems that this family has put a lot of eyeliners in his Qin mansion. With a slight smile in his heart, Qin Xiaofeng's eyes flashed with cold light. Guan Guan also knew a lot about the relationship between the Qin family in Lanjiang City and the Zhang family, so he didn't say anything about Zhang Lingyun's words. He just said Master Zhang Air, and said hello to Zhang Lingyun. Divine Cultivation System Chapter 9, Fighting Beast, Part 1. Zhang Lingyun originally thought that if he satirized Qin Xiaofeng in this way, the other party would be somewhat irritated by him. But he was wrong. Fong Guanshi, I came here today and there is nothing else to do. I'm just going to take a look at some low-level monsters. If possible, just take a few back to play. Ignore it completely. As if he hadn't heard Zhang Lingyun's words, Qin Xiaofeng smiled and talked with Guanshi Fang. Qin Xiaofeng, you. Qin Xiaofeng's attitude once again angered Zhang Lingyun. Zhang Lingyun looked angry, and he couldn't help but rush towards Qin Xiaofeng. But after seeing Fang Guan's affairs, he immediately remembered where he was now, but a place that his father didn't dare to offend. With a cold sweat in his heart, Zhang Lingyun immediately suppressed the anger in his heart. But he looked at Qin Xiaofeng's gaze, but he was even more angry. As for Qin Xiaofeng, he still regarded it as non-existent, and looked at Fang Guan with a smile on his face. This young master of the Qin family does not seem to be desperate like the rumors of the outside world. Qin Xiaofeng's performance made the manager couldn't help but admire him, and he smiled and said, "Oh, that's the case. Now I'll take Qin Xiao to have a look." However, it is obvious that the manager of this party will not forget Zhang Lingyun. Although he himself looks down on Zhang Lingyun, in the attitude of a businessman, he finally smiled at Zhang Lingyun. "If young Master Zhang Er is interested, why don't we go and see?" Looking at Qin Xiaofeng angrily, Zhang Lingyun thought for a while and then nodded in charge of the other party. "Okay, I'll take care of everything." Following this party in charge, Qin Xiaofeng and Zhang Lingyun came to the backyard of the Colosseum. In fact, the backyard of this Colosseum is not accessible to ordinary people, because this is not the place where the beasts are, but the place where the low-level monsters are located, and non-staff cannot enter. However, as Qin Xiaofeng and Zhang Lingyun, this party didn't care about these things. Sure enough, as Fang Guanshi said, this Colosseum has newly entered a batch of low-level monsters. The monster beasts in the cages in this backyard were full of savage aura, and at first glance they were brand new low-level monsters that had never been to the Colosseum. But these did not meet Qin Xiaofeng's requirements. Under normal circumstances, the low-level monster beasts that can be included in the fighting beasts are definitely not comparable to those in Qin's mansion. Although the giant turkey and domestic porcupine are both low-level monsters, the system is also divided in this way. But Qin Xiaofeng understood that a low-level monster of the same realm, anyone here, could slaughter the chickens, ducks and ducks of the Qin mansion. So the price of these low-level monsters is certainly not low. Alas, it's not good this time. I don't have many gold tickets, and I can't buy a few. Qin Xiaofeng was in trouble. He just brought more than 1,000 gold tickets, and at most he bought 2 or 3 low-level monsters. The wealth of this world is also measured by gold and silver. 1 tael of gold is equal to 12 taels of silver, and gold tickets for thousands of taels are actually quite a lot. After all, for an average family, a month's expenditure of only a dozen silver is enough. I don't know which monsters the 2 young masters have fancy. I can get a discount. At this time, Fang Guan set his mouth. Although it was a discount, he looked at Qin Xiaofeng and Zhang Lingyun's eyes at the moment, just as if he saw 2 fat sheep. He could see that there was a conflict between Qin Xiaofeng and Zhang Lingyun, but the more so, the better for him. After all, there is conflict before competition. Only with competition can he make a lot of money. It's a pity, if the steward knows that he only has more than 1,000 gold tickets, I don't know if he will have such an idea. Seeing that Fang Guan was so enthusiastic, Qin Xiaofeng gave a weird smile, then hesitated and said, "Well, actually But before Qin Xiaofeng could say anything, Zhang Lingyun on the side immediately sneered and said, "We, Daxiao Qin, will not let Fang Guan down." With Qin Daxiao's current hobbies, it is estimated that Fang Guan can make a lot of money. Up. Divine Cultivation System Chapter 10, Fighting Beast, Middle. Zhang Lingyun was so mocking that he wanted to arouse Qin Xiaofeng's anger, but he was disappointed again. As if he hadn't heard Zhang Lingyun's words, Qin Xiaofeng smiled slightly at the other side's manager and said, "Fang, in charge of this trip, I just plan to buy 2 or 3 low-level monster beasts, and study this low-level monster beast that can become a fighting beast. What is the difference between those low-level monsters that are eaten at home?" Qin Xiaofeng's answer was completely beyond Fang Guanshi's expectation, making him a little bit dumbfounded. This Qin family's young and old is really unpredictable. However, before he could say anything, Zhang Lingyun, who was angered by Qin Xiaofeng again, spoke. Research? Zhang Lingyun sneered, and said disdainfully, unexpectedly, our young master Qin is still so interested in fighting beasts. If this is the case, you Qin Xiaofeng dare to bet with me? This time, Qin Xiaofeng did not ignore Zhang Lingyun's words again, because these words of Lingyun had already aroused his interest. Take a bet. As soon as Zhang Lingyun spoke, Qin Xiaofeng guessed his mind. But he smiled coldly in his heart, looked back at Zhang Lingyun slightly. Qin Xiaofeng smiled and said, "Oh, I didn't expect Zhang Ershao to be so elegant, then I will stay with Qin Xiaofeng to the end. Tell me, how do you gamble?" Huh, this kid finally got the bait. Seeing Qin Xiaofeng agreed, Zhang Lingyun laughed. Although he didn't know about fighting beasts, there was a guard who knew very well about low-level monsters around him. This Qin Xiaofeng dared to gamble with him, definitely looking for death. Just gamble on beasts. Zhang Lingyun sneered, didn't you Qin Dasha have some research on beasts? Then we will choose one of these low-level beasts to fight against each other, and win or lose in a round. When Zhang Lingyun said this, he looked confident. The low-level monster beasts of the Colosseum were all worn with a token of isolation after being captured. Unless it is a master among the innate martial arts, otherwise no one can easily feel the specific situation of these fighting beasts. Zhang Lingyun would not believe that Qin Xiaofeng really knew what fighting beasts had. The guard behind him is his confident grasp. Oh, what about the bet? Without paying attention to Zhang Lingyun's self-confident appearance, Qin Xiaofeng chuckled lightly, but there was a burst of laughter in his heart. Compare this to me. There are tokens that have an aura of isolation. Others can't see the strength of these low-level monster beasts. Unfortunately, these don't work for me. How can he stop his exploration with a systemic eye and a token of isolation? As early as when he came in here, Qin Xiaofeng had consumed 10 points of vigor, and a fierce and golden eye made all the monster beasts in here clear. He has long been invincible. These Zhang Lingyun didn't know this, and when Qin Xiaofeng asked about the bet, he sneered even more. However, although he also wanted to make a big bet directly, he was also afraid that Qin Xiaofeng would shrink back. So he sneered at Qin Xiaofeng, "It's up to you Qin Dashao to decide this bet. I'm afraid I'm too big to say that you Qin Dashao can't afford it." He couldn't talk about the bet in a big way, but Zhang Lingyun was planning to stimulate Qin Xiaofeng. Qin Xiaofeng is not stupid at this point. Of course he can hear Zhang Lingyun's intentions. But this fits his mind. With a slight movement in his heart, Qin Xiaofeng suddenly thought of something, a gleam of light flashed in his eyes, and then turned to Fang Guan, who had been silent for a long time with a smile on his face, and said, "Fang Guan, you are basically injured in the Colosseum. A low-level monster that can't fight anymore, right?" "Okay." When Qin Xiaofeng suddenly said such a sentence, Fang Guanshi was puzzled. Despite this, Guanshi still replied, "Well, there are a lot of low-level monsters like this. Basically, they are not sold to restaurants or sold to some people who come to buy them at a reserve price, but most of them are directly fed to others. Fighting beast, I don't know what Qin Dasha is." "Very good." Qin Xiaofeng smiled, and then said, "Actually, my bet is very simple. It is to buy all the low-level monsters in the Colosseum that are injured and unable to fight the beasts. Those who lose pay the bill. I don't know what Zhang Ershao wants.